Right, and some breaking news coming in. The Election Commission has warned Rajesh Deo, he's the DCP crime branch, for sharing images of the Shaheen Bagh shooter with the media. The EC has also said that Deo will not be assigned any work related to the Delhi elections, and now a compliance report needs to be submitted by 6 p.m. tomorrow evening. Now, let's remember the Delhi police today had denied Aam Aadmi Party's allegations that the police was working for the BJP, saying that the photo shared was available in the public sphere. Right, this is the latest that's coming in right now. Let me quickly go to my colleague Ayushman now, who's joining me on the phone line. Ayushman, there's clear politics over the Shaheen Bagh shooter now. Of course, the EC sending out a pretty stern warning to the DCP crime branch.
Yes, Sanjana. In fact, the DCP crime branch, Rajesh Deo, the notice will be given to him, and also the Election Commission has said that the comment which he gave to media was totally uncalled for, and it has said that if the investigation was having a political connotation, he should not have spoken to media and the information should not have been divulged, and that has been done in this case. And Aam Aadmi Party has alleged that there was a violation of Model Code of Conduct. Taking a suo motu cognizance, the EC has directed the Commissioner of Police to issue a warning to Rajesh Deo and also ensure that he's not really assigned any work related to the ongoing elections, and they have to submit the compliance report on these two issues by 6 p.m. tomorrow. Sanjana.
Right, Ayushman, and if you can actually take us through the allegations really that, were flying thick and fast today, because, the Delhi police was claiming one thing, the BJP was claiming one thing, the Aam Aadmi Party was claiming another.
Well, Sanjana, if you look at this matter, the person who fired at Shaheen Bagh, he was taken into custody, and yesterday in the evening, while submitting the evidences to the court, it was being leaked to the media that this person belonged to Aam Aadmi Party, and there was a barrage of attack being made by the BJP on Aam Aadmi Party, that it was Aam Aadmi Party behind the attack at Shaheen Bagh. So Aam Aadmi Party clearly defended their position, saying the Delhi police has worked at the behest of the BJP and is targeting the AAP during the election. Also, they said that at a time when Model Code of Conduct is in place, how come an investigation which is already under the Delhi police, which has not reached its closure, how the details have come out? There was definitely a violation of Model Code of Conduct. Looking at which the Election Commission sought for a detailed report in this, and going through the report, the Commission felt that the comments which were made and the action in this case was totally uncalled for. And this is the word that the Commission has used in the letter that has been sent to the Commissioner of Police. And they have said that a warning should be issued to Rajesh Deo, and he won't be allowed assigned any work till the related to elections. And the Commission will be given a compliance notice of these two orders by 6 p.m. tomorrow.
That's right, Ayushman. Thank you so much for bringing us those updates. This politics over the Shaheen Bagh shooter now intensifying, with the Election Commission sending out a stern warning to the DCP crime branch over this photograph that you're seeing on your screens was actually circulated to the media last evening. And let's go right back into our debate. Delhi's Shaheen Bagh has become a protest site against the controversial Citizenship Amendment Act. Now, as the protest has crossed the 50-day mark, an infant who was brought to the protest site succumbed to bitter cold and congestion after being exposed to the winter chill. Now, we're talking freezing temperatures here, viewers. Now, 12-year-old Bravery Award winner Zen Gunaratan Sadawarte, who is joining us also this evening, has moved the Supreme Court seeking directions for preventing involvement of children and infants in protest demonstrations. Now, children at protests is a different issue. But what about infants? What about toddlers? Is it time that we stop romanticizing the legitimacy that, say, children or women provide to a protest and agitate and force others, and rather, urge others to actually agitate and protest responsibly?
चलो हुआ था 2:30 बजे, मैंने अपने हाथ से खुद दूध पिलाया, फिर मैं भी सो गया। सुबह उठ के देख रहे हैं कि अचानक में ये उठती हैं और चिल्लाते हुए कि अम्मी मेरे बच्चे को बचा लो। अच्छा। तो एकदम मैं भी यहीं सोया होता हूँ, तो मैं भी उठता हूँ एकदम, तो मैं देखता हूँ तो बच्चे में कुछ होता नहीं है, तो लेके भागते हैं बटला क्लिनिक हमारे पास जो हॉस्पिटल है, वहाँ भागते हैं। फिर उसके बाद जवाब दे देते हैं वो कि बच्चे में कुछ नहीं है। कारण बताया था डॉक्टर ने? नहीं, उन्होंने कुछ कारण नहीं बताया। चेक करा और बस बोले कि किसी बड़े हॉस्पिटल में ले जाइए।
ये बताइएगा कि कितने दिन से आप उनको लेकर के जा रहे थे अपने बच्चे को, और क्योंकि प्रोटेस्ट को जो स्टार्ट हुआ है 50 दिन से ज़्यादा हो गया।
जी, मैं 18 दिसंबर से उसे लेके जाती थी रोज़, और जुमे के दिन से स्टार्ट करा था मैंने उस दिन ले जाना। फिर उसके बाद शाहीन बाग उस दिन आखिरी दिन मैं लेके गई हूँ 29 तारीख को।
ठीक है।
उसके बाद फिर सुबह में बच्चे का डेथ हो गया। फिर नहीं हम गए हैं अभी तक। अब आज से जाना चाह रहे हैं हम। अब हम जाएंगे रोज़।
मतलब अब आप कह रही हैं कि आप दोबारा फिर से जाएंगे, तो आज से जाएंगी?
हाँ, मैं आज से फिर से जाऊंगी प्रोटेस्ट में। जब तक ये वापस नहीं लेंगे जब तक मैं जाऊंगी।
मेरा तो मैसेज इतना ही है सारे माँ बापों को जो अपने बच्चों को प्रोटेस्ट में लेकर जाते हैं कि ये मत लेकर जाओ, क्योंकि बच्चों की अभी पढ़ने की और लिखने की उम्र होती है। वो आगे आएंगे प्रोटेस्ट में जब उनको सच में अंडरस्टैंडिंग होगी कि वो क्या कर रहे हैं।
Now, let me quickly bring in my panelists this evening. I have Anjali Bharadwaj, member Right to Food campaign and the co-convener of the NCPRI. Zen Sadavarte, the child actually who wrote a letter to the CJI. She's going to be joining us shortly. I have Raghav Avasthi, lawyer, also joining us. Deepa Ishwar, social activist. Tara Krishnaswamy, also a social activist. Good evening to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Let me get right into it. Raghav Avasthi, why do you feel like children shouldn't be at protests? Is that the sense that we're getting, given whatever has been going on in Shaheen Bagh, and not just Shaheen Bagh, we're seeing it in Lucknow, we're seeing it in Hyderabad?
No, I don't feel that children of, like, if children are old enough, then they should definitely be at a protest. That's not a problem. But if they are infants and the weather conditions are also hostile, then I think it's thoroughly irresponsible on the part of the parents to bring the children to the protests. Now, if it had been any other country, the other children that this lady has would have been taken away by child services, because she's really, really young. And people who are as irresponsible as this should not be allowed to rear kids at all. And it's really unfortunate. I was also at Shaheen Bagh the other day. These people have clearly not read the act in its totality, and these children are being scapegoated. I'm reminded of something that Golda Meir, the famous, the celebrated Israeli stateswoman, said. And what she said was that the Israel-Palestine conflict would end the day the Palestinians love their children more than they hate us. So when all of these people who are protesting against the CA and the NRC, CA specifically, which has nothing to do with them, they should be up their heads on Narendra Modi, and I think the protests will abate after that.
All right. So, Anjali Bharadwaj, at the Shaheen Bagh protests, it's clear that the parents are talking about their vulnerability by bringing children to their protests. So, don't you think that we actually need to look at that and act from there so that parents do not feel so vulnerable? Because we heard one of the parents actually talk about how she's going to continue to protest because this is about the future of her children.
That's right. So let me begin by saying that this is very, very unfortunate what has happened. And I don't think that anyone can have any other view on the matter except to say that it is most unfortunate that little child has lost her life and the parents are clearly aggrieved. But let me say that what we just heard is spoken from a place of total privilege, the panelist who spoke before me, because I can tell you that you just need to step out of your house, just visit any construction site, just speak to people who live in our country, 70% of the people at least, who when they go to work have no social infrastructure. The women have no choice but to leave their children either alone at home, locked up, or they have to take the toddlers and the children with them. What we need to recognize here is that there isn't any space, whether women go to work or they go to join a protest, where children are safe. They can be left in proper creches, where there can be this social infrastructure that can be developed. Now, one can say that let mothers not work, let mothers not go to exercise their democratic right to protest. I think that those things would be totally incorrect. We need, as a society, to work towards systems, and the government needs to provide, whichever government comes into power, needs to provide a proper system where children can be taken care of when their mothers engage in various forms of activities which accrue to them as being citizens of a free country. So right now, of course, it was a question of the mother taking this toddler to for a protest. In another case, it could very well be her going for work and taking the child for construction work to a construction site with her. The problem at the heart of the matter is the fact that we don't have social infrastructure, we don't have creches, we don't have adequate facilities in our country to take care of the children of our country who are the future.
All right, Raghav. Yes, Raghav. Go ahead.
Very quickly. So I agree with the esteemed panelist who said that in this country there is no social infrastructure to take care of the children that women have to take to work otherwise. But you cannot equate work with protests here. I'll be very clear. My partner is German. I have a daughter who's a German citizen. She was born in Germany. But even in a developed country in Europe, there is no system whereby somebody takes care of your kids all through the night while you are at a protest. So in no other country are your children taken care of by the state or some other, means of social infrastructure if you are at an all-night protest where weather conditions are inclement. In any other country, if you are so irresponsible then that you don't know what is good for your child or what is bad for your child, then your children are taken away by child services. I am also a father, so I also understand the pain of the mother, but the fact is that she is misguided by those who want to induce hatred in her minds as to what the government has done. So this is something that we need to understand. And I would also urge my panelists to not patronize me
then let's do that.
To not patronize me and say that I come from a place of that I'm talking from a place of immense privilege. So please don't do that. You don't know anything about me. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay. So let's not get into, because that's not the point.
I am not saying.
The point over here is not about the reasons for the protest. The point over here is about bringing children.
The point is that this lady is irresponsible.
It's about bringing infants. Yes, I agree, Raghav Avasthi. But okay, but Deepa Iswar, like Anjali rightly raised, there are no arrangements that are made otherwise for mothers to leave their children elsewhere. Where are they to take or do with their children rather than bring them to protest? Are they then, when they want to protest, when they want to agitate, when they want to express themselves, are they going to be expected to sit at home because they have children?
No, just look at the irony of the whole situation, because if you read through all the news that has come around this unfortunate incident of this infant, we losing this infant's life at the protest, it's like, she keeps saying, that mother keeps saying that she's been doing this for her children, but she doesn't have a child today for whom she's been fighting for all this. And she's got two other surviving children for whom she says she will still go fighting for it. With all due respect to the mother, I cannot help but say that the mother or the parents should have been a tad more responsible, because I even noticed that she said that, I did not notice that the chest congestion was so severe. I mean, of everything that's around you, of everything that's happening around you, how can you not notice that your child's chest congestion is so severe? I understand that her heart and soul is into fighting in the protest, but then I am a mother as well. I've been part of campaigns that has been extremely violent out there, and I have been away from there. I've not gone out there because I have a toddler and I have to take care of him. I'm not saying that I'm the ideal person, not at all, but all I'm saying is that at some point you need to to take a call on what are your priorities. I mean, is it about, of course, you are fighting for your children, but then you need to take care of your children first before, and you need to ensure that your children are out there safe, healthy and fit to actually enjoy what you're fighting for. As in, whatever rights you're fighting for, it has to be enjoyed by your children. So you know that your child has caught a cold, and still the child was brought to the protest, and again she's saying the same thing, that she will still come. Yes, I respect her courage, I respect her her spine to do this, the spine that many of us lack out here. With all due respect to her, she should have been, or the parents together should have been more responsible. And as I see from the news, she's got 2 other surviving children, and one is a 5-year-old girl. I mean, I do not know what is the background, but then that's an elder sister we are talking about, who could easily have taken care of the infant. So she could still have come out there and protested and made her voice clear out there in the society, while she could have left her children with someone, or at least the elder sister could have taken care of. I mean, I don't know. I'm no one to comment on what her situations are. So please forgive me if I'm wrong. But then I would always say that it was a tad unwise. For the lack of any other word, I have to unfortunately choose the word a tad unwise, or maybe foolish, to think that, you know, it's okay to take my infant, even if it's an infant we're talking about, not even a toddler. It's a 4-month-old infant, if I'm not wrong, whom we're talking about, and the infant will not have the immunity to fight all this. So why are we not educating our people on all this, that, you know, you need to be a little smarter, you need to be wiser, and you need to know your priorities? I think this is a very unfortunate incident of, and this has nothing to do with the protest. This is just to do with not prioritizing yourself. So I don't think we need to say that, oh, it's only because the government brought in, and that's unnecessarily dragging politics into the whole thing, that it's because CAA came in that we had to protest, and because of the protest we lost our child. I think that's a very stretched statement to make.
Correct.
And I think we all need to be smart enough to understand that it's nothing to do with protest, it's just about prioritizing.
Okay, so then Tara Krishnaswamy, then is it also not the right of the parents to actually decide that, you know, I'm going to protest no matter what? That this is my right, that this is what I'm going to do. If I am okay and I'm going for a peaceful protest, there is nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more nuanced than the panelists so far have made it out to be. I actually agree with all of them in some respects. I agree that, you know, it is irresponsible to have put your child in such a situation. It is such an unfortunate tragedy. My heart goes out to the parents that they made a mistake. So it is true that in any other country, child services will act. But then I agree entirely with Anjali as well that child services will also act if it sees the roads of India today with children roaming around, you know, construction workers' children, because, you know, let's face it, Anganwadis are really poorly equipped. They are open from 10 to 3, and, you know, if you're earning your daily roti without which you can't survive, you simply cannot afford to just work from 10 to 3. So we only choose to wake up and criticize these women and tell them they don't know what their priorities are, you know, and take the high moral ground when something like this happens. And it's a terrible tragedy. It is irresponsible. But, you know, daily children are being put in that position, and as the state has not done anything about it. Not for the last 70 years and not for the last 6 years, right? Nothing at all. Every day you see children. So this is, in some sense, those parents are deliberately, and it's not just a mother's choice, right? What was the father doing? And, you know, what was the rest of the family doing? So the point is, it is not about an individual family. The question I want to talk about is, you know, is it the state's problem to regulate this?
Correct.
Right?
Okay.
Should the state be deciding who's allowed to come for a protest and who is not allowed to come for a protest, right? So clearly, a protest is not like work. I agree. It's you can't, you know, you have to think twice. I'm an activist. I'm a mother, and for most of the protests, I don't take my children. Occasionally, I do, because I know for a fact we've had protests where it's all about art. Children come and draw art to indicate how the city is being, you know, developed unsustainably. So those are the kinds of things when it's comfortable to take children, and they do it. So, but the point is, I don't think the state should be making the parents' decision unless, you know, lives are actually going to be in danger. And in particular, in Shaheen Bagh and in this case, I think the citizens' protests for the most part have been completely peaceful, other than mischievous elements that may be deliberately causing harm. Most of the citizens' protests, and I say most, not all, has been largely peaceful. So when you plan it, if you plan it to be peaceful, then you make a certain call. Does that warrant taking an infant in the middle of the winter night? Absolutely not. But what I'm saying is it's a call that parents should make, and parents make mistakes, like this really terrible, tragic case.
Okay. Okay. Now, before I go further, let me also quickly bring in Zen Sadavarte. She's all of 12 years old and also a recipient of the Bravery Award. And she also has written a letter to the CJI. She was supposed to join us live today, but unfortunately, there's been some network issues. So now she's joining us over the phone. Good evening, Zen. Thank you so much for joining us. And once again, congratulations. Really, and all of us here would like to laud you for your efforts and for also winning the Bravery Award. It was very well deserved. So, Zen, tell me a little about the letter that you wrote to the CJI. What exactly did you say?
I'll not call it a particular letter, but I'll call it a letter petition.
Okay.
And why would I do that is because it mentions the rights that were harmed of that child. Right now, I heard you talking about is it the responsibility of the parents? Yes, it is the responsibility of parents. Well, whatever you call it a responsibility, you call it a difficulty, at last the point reaches are the same thing. There was a casualty. He died. Young Shaheen died because of mistakes. Well, mistakes cannot be considered like this because a young citizen has died. He's lost his natural justice. He's lost his right to life. He's lost his human rights and children's rights. Well, that is why no child should be allowed at any such protest. Why? Do you think a 4-month-old knows what is happening at the protest? No, right? So that is a point here. If today a child has died, a young citizen has died,
right,
tomorrow a lot more of these young citizens would die. And what will we have to say about that then? It's a responsibility of the parents. It's a responsibility of the government. It's a responsibility of the police to not allow children to be there. In such conditions, do you think a 4-month-old can express how he's feeling?
Correct.
Well, he cannot.
Okay. Point taken. Zen, and very rightly raised. But do you feel like all children shouldn't be fighting for their rights? That they shouldn't be at these protests?
Do you think I don't say that one person shouldn't fight for one's rights? But why do you want children to struggle at all? These are the days where children should go to school, should learn, and later they could join such protests when they really get the understanding to what they're doing right now. Making a little child sit at the protest, how right is it after the open sky under the cold breeze? It doesn't sound right. Once I hear this, my blood starts to boil. How are no cognizance taken even after this?
All right.
So that is why I raised the voice.
Okay.
And as we were talking about the letter petition that I had put before the Honorable CJI,
right?
Well, that demanded another thing. Other than children not being at protests and demonstrations as such, there was written that young Shaheen, when he was brought dead to the hospital, usually when a dead body is brought dead to the hospital, the first thing is that there's a post-mortem report that is taken out.
Okay.
But here, there's no such post-mortem report. There's no reason of death. Well, the mother says that he had cold, he had congestion, but the post-mortem report doesn't. I have appealed for the post-mortem report to come out.
All right. Zen, thank you so much for letting us know and for speaking with us about your letter petition, as you're calling it, to the CJI, where you've spoken about the rights of the children. But one last question.
I have a question, a comment.
Sure, Tara. Just a second before I let Zen go. One last question, Zen. Let me ask you: are you also against attending any of these protests? I'm assuming you're from Mumbai. Have you attended any of these protests? What is the best way to go about this for children also to be educated, whether it is anti or pro, or just to understand what is going on in the country?
not understanding what is going around the country. Well, children should be a part of anything that goes around, but not in a harsh way. They can understand the current affairs, they can read, they can research, but why do you want them to struggle? We're talking about common sense, that is child rights here. We are not wanting children to enter politics and become a play in the politics, a pawn in the politics.
Okay, okay.
That's right.
All right, all right. Well taken, and some very pertinent points being raised there by Zen, who's all of 12 years old. Tara, you wanted to make a point. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is where you wonder about someone like Greta Thunberg, who is actually leading the environmental protests.
That's right.
And lots of children across the world in European countries that have very advanced, progressive laws about life and liberty have come out across Europe, across the US. Children have left school to come out and illustrate this, because it is their world too, and it's their future too. And if you don't hear their voices, you surely cannot build a place that is, comfortable for them. So clearly there is a balance between saying no children at all and, bringing an infant in the dead of winter. So,
Exactly.
and that balance, the real question I think here, instead of trashing the parents, is whether the state gets to decide that balance, and at what point and how much do we, give the state sort of the big brotherly sort of lathi, if you will, versus, putting it in the hands of adults.
Right, but
it
appears that the state wants very little to do with what's happening, or rather they're extremely mum about what's happening. So that's also something that we need to consider. Raghav, let's for a second also assume here, like Tara said, that, and you also mentioned at the start of this, is that perhaps we need to strike a balance. But then how can we assume that if we keep our children at home, that they're not going to get traumatized equally, as opposed to them attending a protest?
There is a difference between saying that, okay, all children who are below 18 years of age should not participate in any protest. That's not what I am saying. But this case is related to an infant who was, I think, 4 months old. So a 4-month-old infant has absolutely no agency. He or she doesn't understand what's happening. I have a daughter who's about 7 months old. So they are like really delicate flowers who have to be, who have to be treated as if they are precious. And it's really the fault of the parents. And if I were to decide things, I would charge the parents for culpable homicide not amounting to murder, because they've clearly taken this decision to take her night after night to these protests with cavalier disregard for her health and well-being.
Well,
if it was an older child, like a 5 or 6 year old, that's fine.
May I
understand.
Yes, sure, Zen. Just a second. Raghav, let Raghav finish making his point. Raghav, are you done?
I finished my point.
Yeah.
What Zan has to say is more important.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Zen. We're all eagerly awaiting to hear what you have to say. Go ahead.
I agree. It is the fault of the parents, but I would never agree that the parents are at total fault here. Because the parents are going to get their children, and if a mother who's carrying a 4-month-old child, she will definitely get children around with her. Well, but the government is more responsible here. The police is more responsible. Even though the protest is legal, or even if it is illegal, the authorities are the people who should take care, who have to take care of little children and of old people who are there. I am not saying that the old people shouldn't be there, because I cannot, but at least I can say that the children who are there should have been taken care of by the authorities, by the organizers as well.
Okay. Anjali Bharadwaj, then is it incumbent on the state to actually look into this? Given that most political parties, of course, are quick to politicize what's happening in Shaheen Bagh, but very few parties are actually making the effort, or really none, to go down there and actually find out what the concerns are, what arrangements can be made to understand the real issue, to look at the logistics that surround it.
Well, if we say political parties, I don't believe in any such political parties. Well, I believe in the government, in the authorities.
Okay,
who
okay.
are right now there.
All right. So Anjali, go ahead.
Well, let me just say upfront yet again that ideally there should be no children, no toddlers, not even 4, 5, 6-year-old, 10-year-olds at protest sites or at work sites. But that is the sad reality of our country. We do need to recognize that the government has certain responsibilities. That responsibility can't be that you curtail rights of protest and decide things for people. That responsibility needs to be fulfilled at 2 levels by our government. One is that these women are sitting out in the harshest of weathers. There is a reason why they are sitting out there. They are feeling utterly betrayed, they are feeling threatened, there is a sense of fear with what is happening with the CA, NRC, NPR. The government should go out there and it should engage with these women so that these protests don't have to take place in the first place. That is one thing that the government must do.
Okay.
The second thing is that the government must make sure that when citizens of our country exercise their rights, their democratic fundamental rights, there is an infrastructure that is provided, whether it is to work or it is to protest, and that is very important. The budget was just announced last week. I wish that we had seen more outlay for creches, more outlay for welfare of children. We have not seen that happen. The government needs to do that, because till then we can keep blaming parents. We can keep acting like I am a better parent, but those parents are wrong and they are bad parents. That is not going to help the situation. The reality of this country is very simple, that people don't have the social infrastructure, especially when they're living in big cities. They don't have those large families where they can park children. Typically, small children, toddlers are left locked inside houses when mothers go out to work, where cylinders are also there with 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds. We don't think that that is anything to be encouraged. Similarly, like I said, ideally the state should provide for systems where people have the support that they need to be able to exercise their rights. What has happened is unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. Nobody will deny that. But let us understand what the problem is and try and address it. Both these things the government has failed so far in doing.
Right. Okay. So before I come to you, Raghav, let me quickly get in Deepa Ishwar here, because this is something that I think everybody is conflicted about, because there is a difference, as Raghav rightly pointed out, Tara reiterated later, there is a clear difference between going to a job and going to a protest that goes on for over 50 days, that goes on from one place where you're spending one night after the other. Even in that event, is the state government, are the authorities incumbent to do something? Is it then even the responsibility for them to make these kind of arrangements? Because let's remember that, they're very different things. Going to a job and going to a protest are very, very different things. You can't be exposing a 4-month-old child to an open sky when you actually have the choice not to.
Sanjana, I have a comment also.
Yes. I'll come to
exactly
everybody.
My point.
Go ahead, Deepa. Go ahead.
Yeah. Exactly my point. I know I might, at one glance, I might sound like the person who's been pointing fingers at the parents. Not at all. I am a parent. And with all genuinity, I must say that my heart goes out to that mother. I have no idea. And I have all respect for her for gathering her wits and still continuing the protest. Let her succeed in her protest. But my point is that, of course, we can always blame the government. We can always blame the organizers for having allowed children there. Of course, they should have done their parts in saying that the children are not allowed for such campaigns. That's a different story. But then what I'm saying is that irrespective of that, irrespective of whether the organizers bother about your children, irrespective of whether the state government or the state bothers about your children, you should be bothered about your children. So that's all I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that this mother was not bothered. No mother on earth will not be bothered about the children. But I'm just again using the same word, that the parent, it's not just the mother alone, the dad and the mom, both of them should have been equally responsible, should have acted or should have made alternative arrangements. And if there is no alternative arrangements, I'm sorry to say, both of them should have just stood back to take care of the child. Because at the end of the day, the children are important and not the protest. The protest will go on. There are so many people out there. It would not make, probably one person less would not make too much of a difference. Your priorities should be very clearly laid out before you. And I'm not blaming them for that. I'm just saying that their mistakes happen. I am a parent. I have made mistakes. I have guilt for all the mistakes I have done.
I do
So this
respect
is an
you as a
unfortunate
parent. I
mistake.
know parents have a lot of love for their children, but at the same time, why don't we understand this, that this blaming factor is never going to end. The only thing that is going to start is a new political theory here. What we want is a new revolution here. We don't want children to attend such protests because children would get harmed. We don't want them to be harmed. We want new facilities for them. And even if I heard someone mention this before. I heard someone mention this before that the children from different countries who research are coming out and talking for themselves. Well, talking for themselves is different. Raising their voice is different. Protesting in one way is different, but sitting under the open sky, making your body struggle, making yourself struggle. And what about breastfeeding? The breastfeeding of the baby, what about that?
Okay,
well,
okay.
Under the open sky?
All right, okay. Let 1 second, 1 second. Okay, is there...
No, again, you bring a 4-month-old, you bring your own...
Just a second,
you
Deepa.
bring your own child onto the protest out there, and you say that I'm there protesting with my children there. I'm really sorry, it doesn't make sense to me, because that's not their choice. We are parents, and we are actually taking the liberty to say that I am protesting and my children feel the same when the 4-month-old baby has no idea what's happening around him or her.
Right.
So I think this is clearly, of course, the state has to take a decision. The organizers have to be careful, but above all, the parents have to be careful. How can you walk away from the reality that above all, your children are your responsibility first?
All right. Raghav, you wanted to make a point. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to make 2 points actually. I wanted to first respond to Ms. Bharadwaj's second point. She was bemoaning India's lack of social infrastructure, and now she was also saying that now in big cities there is nobody to take care of the kids. She should name one country in the world where there's a facility of an overnight crèche for parents who want to attend night-long vigils or protests. She should do that. I'm really eager to know. That would enhance my general knowledge also. The second point that I want to make is just this. I had actually gone to Shaheen Bagh last Wednesday, exactly a week ago.
Okay.
And I tried to engage with the people there, and I first complimented their idealism. I then said that the CA has nothing to do with Indian citizens. But before I could complete my point, I was heckled off stage. So you can reason with people who are willing to listen to reason. But here, there are so many people who don't want to listen to reason. They have a thing in their head where they feel that this government is illegitimate because somehow they feel that since they did not vote for it, the government becomes illegitimate. And I think that's thoroughly undemocratic. No government in the world would yield in the face of such hooliganism. This is fascism. If there's a democratically elected government and it is fulfilling its manifesto promise, then you can challenge that decision in a court of law. But to do so in the middle of a street and try to blackmail the government and the rest of the polity, I'm really sorry. That's textbook fascism, and it should be called out for what it is. And the worst part, the thin end of the wedge, is that you are taking children who have absolutely no agency, not even children, infants, to this protest, and you are endangering their lives. Like I said earlier, if I was in charge, I would book the parents for culpable homicide, not amounting to murder, put them in jail and make sure that they don't get bail.
Okay, Anjali, before I come to you, Anjali, before I come to you, Tara has been waiting patiently to make a point.
Thank God.
So,
just a second, Anjali. I'm going to come back to you, I promise. But let Tara just quickly make her point.
Yeah. So I noticed that, Raghav keeps getting in the very core of the CAA protest into this one way or the other, when that's not the topic of the discussion.
Right.
But children in UP were pulled out of a madrasa and taken to police stations. Children in my own Karnataka have been questioned not for 1 day, not for 2 days, not for 1 hour, not for 2 hours, five times continuously by multiple policemen. Okay, so it seems now it doesn't in any way equate to a child's death. And of course, taking a child to work at a construction site is not the same as taking a child to a protest. One, you have a choice. One, you don't. One is in the dead of the night. But the point is that if you're really concerned about making sure that the children of our country who don't have agency are treated well and, treated with the rights that are due to children, then it cannot be selective outrage just based on the fact that these protests happen to be against the establishment. The only reason this is getting the attention it is when daily children are dying in construction sites or being tortured, whether it's in the police station or due to these very protests, children are being pulled out by the police. In fact, then the police snatched the blankets from the women in Shaheen Bagh. And what was that? Is that not torture? And did the children that are with the women not suffer the cold too? When the women, their mothers themselves are cold. So
Nobody snatched blankets in Shaheen Bagh.
I'm sorry, no. I didn't interrupt you.
No blankets were snatched in Shaheen Bagh. Don't be factually incorrect then.
Okay, let's
can you not?
One was from Lucknow.
This issue is the 1 second. This issue is about children. It's particularly about infants and toddlers at protest. It is not about the core of the protest. It is not why the protests are happening. It is not what is happening. Go ahead, Tara. Finish your point.
My point is that these kinds of incidents that violate children's, even rights to life, and children lose their lives daily, whether it's in mines, whether it's in bonded labor, whether it's just daily going to work and you've left your child. It can be like Anjali pointed out, there are cylinders everywhere and there's children either working there or living there. The point is that we as a country don't take it seriously until it comes to an anti-establishment protest when it's very convenient to, scream bloody murder, right? That's exactly what's happening. If we want to fix, that is not to say this isn't egregious. It is simply to say that if we are genuine about fixing this as opposed to politicizing it, then all of these are issues that lead to this. If you're a mom who's used to leaving your child in the kitchen with the cylinder, then tomorrow you don't think twice taking them out because that becomes daily habit. You can't help it. That's all you've got.
Right.
I don't know about your particular situation. What I'm saying is people in our country are inured to seeing children in certain circumstances, and that's horrific and that's tragic. If we want to fix it, this debate has to happen outside of the Shaheen Bagh incident about why we have children on the streets exposed to, horrific conditions and conditions that endanger their lives.
Right.
It cannot only be conveniently when it's an anti-establishment protest.
Absolutely. Point well made. Let me quickly now open our calling lines. The numbers are flashing in on your screens. Anjali, I'm sorry. I just
very quickly.
Okay. But I need you to make your point really quickly. I'm completely running out of time. I just want to get in some callers as well.
Quickly.
Anjali, go ahead. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. I agree with Tara. I think what has happened is that the Shaheen Bagh protest and these protests that are taking place have opened a Pandora's box. There have been these issues that have existed in our country. People have been raising their voices. Women have been raising their voices saying, please do something about the plight of children whenever anything happens, like I said, whether it's employment or protest. Let me also say that many people are saying that women have no choice when they go to work, but this is a matter of choice. This might not be seen as a matter of choice by these people who are feeling that this is a very, very core important issue for them, and which is why they are sitting out in the cold themselves and with their children. And finally, to say that Raghav from calling these women irresponsible has now called them fascists, and I think he's completely exposed himself and his politics.
All right.
I haven't exposed myself. That's not what I'm into. I'm really sorry.
Okay. Let me quickly bring in some callers right now. I have Balaji joining me on the phone line from Maharashtra. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on The Last Word this evening. Go ahead.
Good evening, Sanjana. Hello.
Good evening. Go ahead. If I can just request you to turn down the volume of your television, please.
Television का volume कम करना.
Yes, go ahead, Balaji.
Yeah, my question to Mr. Raghav Awasthi is very specific. आप लोग ये शाहीन बाग को जलियांवाला बाग कभी बनाने वाले हो?
Okay, I don't think that is that kind of question needs to be entertained, and I don't quite understand the implication of that. But let's not get into that. Let me also quickly bring in another caller now. Joining me on the phone line, I have Jamshed joining us from Mumbai. Good evening, Jamshed. Thank you so much for joining us on the last
Good
word.
evening.
Go ahead.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm rather surprised at the stand that both Anjali and Tara seem to take. I mean, here is a parent who has shown utter callousness by exposing a baby. There were two of them. One could have stayed at home and taken care of the child. And not only that, she's gone on television to say she does not mind sacrificing her other two children for this cause. And here these ladies are talking about issues which are totally irrelevant. Someone has died. A child's life has gone. This is not about construction workers taking their children on construction sites. They take care of them on construction sites. This is not about that. Let me assure you, if a construction worker's child is not well and she is suffering, she will not take her and just throw her there on the side.
Exactly.
Please, we are talking about death out here of a child, and a parent now turning around and saying that she will make she doesn't mind making two more children shaheed for this cause. Excuse me? Children being made shaheed for a cause? I mean, what are we talking about? And these activists are now talking about some big picture issue about women, and because it is an anti-CAA protest, it is one thing for children to be questioned by the police, which is not necessarily the right thing. And the other thing for a parent herself to expose a child to this condition and agree that maybe even the other two children, if their need comes to that, will suffer the same fate.
All right.
I'm sorry, but this is not even a debate.
Okay, well taken, Jamshed. Thank you so much for calling in on Mirror Now. And the last word. And thank you to my panelists for joining us this evening. A 2-month-old infant who was probably too young to give consent, exercise choice, has been thrown in to this hostile environment, this hostile, freezing, biting cold for children. Now, no one is questioning the protest or the intent or the politics behind it or the fight that the parents have to change the future of their children. But such recklessness and irresponsibility can't go unchecked, especially if you are fighting for children's future but endangering it at the same time. Thank you so much to my panel for joining us this evening, and to you, my viewers, for joining us on The Last Word. And moving on to, let's get some quick action coming in from the national capital ahead of the Delhi elections. The regularization of unauthorized colonies has long been a political issue and a poll promise over the years. But ahead of the Delhi Assembly elections, the Parliament passed a bill to regularize 1,731 unauthorized colonies, a move that is set to benefit over 40 lakh residents from low and middle income groups. But as political parties fight over credit, Mirror Now's Apurva Sridhar finds out whether this is actually a factor for Delhi's residents ahead of the elections. Let's take a look.
Tucked away in a remote corner of northwest Delhi, Raja Vihar in Samaypur is an unauthorized colony mostly inhabited by low-income migrants from UP and Bihar. Located near the Badli industrial area, residents here are now hopeful for a secured future after their colony was included in the list of 1731 illegal colonies which were regularized. Delhi has seen a rapid influx of migrants for decades in search of livelihood. Farmlands were converted into housing colonies, though illegally, and thus the name unauthorized colonies. Over 20 years, successive governments both in Delhi and at the centre gained political mileage by ending the illegal status of thousands of such colonies.
As migration continued, the agencies failed to meet the growing low-cost housing demand, which led to an increase in the number of illegal settlements over the years. The migrant population, which became the backbone of the city's supply system and services, the increase in the population led to a lot of encroachment and mass land use violations. As a result of this, the political parties started regularizing these colonies by giving the residents a legal status.
The migrants who settled in various colonies in Samaypur in the early 80s are mostly skilled and unskilled workers, domestic helpers and factory workers. For residents of Raja Vihar, getting ownership rights mean access to benefits which they could not avail earlier.
मेरे लिए तो सबसे बड़ा मुद्दा यही है। जिंदगी भर की कमाई थी मैडम, जिंदगी भर की कमाई थी जो वो सारी हमने यहीं पर लगा रखी है, और वो आज हमारी अपनी हुई है। कॉलोनी पास होने से हमारी अपनी होगी वो कमाई, ना आज तक हमारी अपनी नहीं थी वो।
हम लोग स्टूडेंट हैं, तो इससे ये बेनिफिट है कि जैसे एजुकेशन लोन रिलेटेड अगर एजुकेशन लोन चाहिए तो वो बैंक हमें पास कर देगा। पहले ये डर था कि हमें ये मिली, मतलब जाते थे अप्लाई करते थे बट वो मिलता नहीं था हमें ये लोन।
Ahead of Delhi elections, 20 residents of unauthorized colonies, including 11 from Raja Vihar, received registration papers of their homes from the Urban Development Minister.
ये डर हमेशा रहता था, रात में अगर सोते थे तो ये हमेशा होता था कि कल मेरी मकान रहेगी या नहीं रहेगी, बट अब ऐसी बात नहीं है। अब जब से हमें मलिकाना हक रजिस्ट्री मिली है तब से तो मतलब हमारी पूरी डर खत्म हो चुकी है।
Just 2 kilometers away lies another illegal colony that was recently regularized. Suraj Park is largely inhabited by salaried class migrants and small-scale traders. Unlike Raja Vihar, this neighborhood has wide concrete roads and bigger houses catering to middle-income families. However, residents here point out big promises made by parties over the years which were never fulfilled.
हम यहाँ 40 साल से रह रहे हैं। पहले बार-बार ये दिक्कत आती थी, हम ना तो बना सकते थे और ना ही कोई एक्सटेंशन कर सकते थे, और हमेशा डर ही लगा रहता था कि कहीं डीडीए या एमसीडी तोड़ने के लिए ना आ जाए, तो हमेशा डर के अंदर ही जी रहे थे।
Regularization of unauthorized colony has been a major poll plank of all the political parties to woo over 40 lakh residents in the 1,731 colonies in the city. Now, ahead of the elections, the voting pattern of these colonies will have a bearing in at least 34 out of the 70 assembly constituencies. With video journalist Sanjeev Chetri, this is Apurva Sridhar in New Delhi for Mirror Now.
Right, some big breaking news coming in. Now all cooperative banks will be brought under the control of the RBI. Let's remember this coming in after the PMC bank scam that broke. Let me quickly bring in my colleague and news editor Avni Raja joining me on the phone line with more. Avni, good evening. We understand the cabinet has approved amendments to the Banking Regulation Act to this effect. So what does this mean essentially?
Well, that's right, Sanjana. This is, in fact, a big move that has come in from the government because, as you said, this is a fallout, of course, of the PMC bank scam that we've seen and the problems that have been faced as a result of that. So now cooperative banks, which are earlier not under RBI control, not under regulated by the RBI, have now been brought under RBI control at this point in time. That's the amendment that has been brought to the Banking Regulation Act itself. So essentially what it means is that the Reserve Bank of India will now have the powers to supersede, to take control of cooperative banks if needed, if there's any kind of irregularities, anything at all that is, noticed by the RBI. They will also need, the cooperative banks would also need RBI's permission to appoint a CEO. Now, earlier, this wasn't there. The cooperative banks did not need RBI permission. So now this is the other point that has come in. Audits also earlier on were not done. Cooperative banks had a different system of being audited, which the RBI didn't have much control of. And now it will be done as per the RBI rules, the way it is done for any of the other commercial banks as well. So this is a big move at this point in time, and also important to know that there are as many as 1,540 cooperative banks in the country with 8.6 crore cooperative bank depositors that are there. So this is a move that is now going to, help ensure that a lot of the mess that cooperative banks have will hopefully at least will be cleaned up, and we won't have to see another PMC bank scam happen, which even right now depositors are still suffering. They've still not yet got their money back. It's locked in over there. And the main reason why the PMC bank scam happened is because the RBI did not have the powers, did not have the control over cooperative banks, and that is why that happened. So hopefully this will now change all of that.
Right, Avni, thank you so much for putting that in perspective. Cooperative banks will also need to take permission from the RBI now to appoint the CEO as per the new amendments.
बैंकिंग रेगुलेशन अमेंडमेंट एक्ट 2019 के तहत मूल बैंकिंग रेगुलेशन एक्ट में सुधार करते हुए इनको भी जैसे कमर्शियल बैंकों के आरबीआई के मापदंड लागू होते हैं और रेगुलेशन में लाते हैं, वैसे रहेगा। ये केवल बैंकिंग के मुद्दे के लिए ये रेगुलेशन रहेगा। बाकी जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव और रोज के कोऑपरेटिव रजिस्ट्रार का जो रेगुलेशन होता है वो चलता रहेगा।
And big move there as the cooperative banks will be brought under the RBI's ambit. And that's a wrap on this edition of The Last Word. Thank you so much for joining me this evening.